I'm defying all the odds. No matter what's against me.
We are live.
No matter what. But now is finally defying all the odds. I found the strength inside me, and no matter what, ain't nothing gonna defeat me. I've been at the bottom, I lost hope, I gave up, came back fighting, and that's when your boy came up. Everywhere that I look, I see another lost soul, and if you listen to my story, maybe it will help you on. No matter how long you've been on the road that you were on, you don't have to become a statistic or a sad song. I told all these haters I'm going straight to the top. They don't wanna see me win, they wanna see me just drop. And that's pretty funny, the devil's the same way. I paused for a minute, but now it's time that I play. Understand this disease, it doesn't discriminate. Have your right or die, brother, lie straight to your face. And I understand, so I don't hold it against you. I have demons, I know that you do too. I'm defying all the odds. No matter what's against me now. No matter what. I once lost all my hope, but now it's finally found. We are only human, sometimes make the wrong choice. That is why I'm on this track, cause I'm gonna be the voice. You don't have to do it on your own and walk this road alone. So when I am going through it, I learn to pick up the phone. The devil's talking in your ear, tells you don't do it. No need to worry, cause he's gonna help you through it. Then you're lying in the bed with a needle in your arm, cause you didn't think that one time would lead to any harm. Now your family is left with that, you won't wake up again. When your heart beat flat lines, that is when he wins. So stop giving him the power to control you. Stick your middle finger up and tell them that you won't use. That's the story of most of your people that's out there, lost in the dark, not knowing that people care. And speaking from experience, I've been down that road, been through all the pain, so I already know. Yo, I spent 2.5 years in the dark, bro. So I know what it is to be in the dark. From the prescription medications to doctors and bullshit like that. Don't think there ain't no help out there. There's plenty of people out there that'll help you get through this. So just pick up the phone, man. I'm defying all the odds. No matter what's against me now. No matter what. I once lost all my hope, but now it's finally.
What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? I see you, Tristan Patterson. Tristan Patterson says Minnesota strong, baby.
Absolutely. Way to go, Tristan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Higgy, and you're tuned into the Survivor Series, No More Heroin. The Survivor Series is an original product of No More Heroin, and we showcase inspirational testimonies of people in recovery, those people that have overcome seemingly insurmountable odds to live a life of purpose and destiny in recovery. And tonight we have an amazing guest from Minnesota, and I'm very, very grateful once again to have you as a guest on our show. You are representative of what this show is about. And I said it before. You're exactly the type of guest that I'm looking for. The person that pulled himself up from the very bottom of the barrel of life to live that life of purpose and destiny. So welcome, Randy Anderson, to the Survivor Series.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on today. This is really cool. Like I was saying earlier, this whole, approaching 50, I'm not a millennial. So this whole podcast thing is new to me, but I've done a few and I think they're really cool. So I'm grateful to be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. You have an amazing testimony about your journey through addiction and finding your way out. So I would like for you to share that with the audience, because there's people out there that need to believe and trust that recovery is possible for anyone, no matter where you end up in life. Like for myself, I ended up in prison as well, homeless and just broken down. And you have a story similar, but what you have done to leverage your recovery, your experience in your community is just unparalleled with a lot of advocates that I've met and talked to. So if you would, please take us on a walk down memory lane, what it was like in your addiction, where you're from, and tell us what it was like.
Yeah, so I always like to start kind of with the same introduction. So, my name is Randy Anderson. I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is I haven't had to use any drugs or alcohol or mood-altering substance since January 9, 2005. And because of my recovery, I've been able to do, truly, I can't even tell you the incredible things. Train, like one of the things I think I'm most proud of is I travel around the state of Minnesota training anyone and everyone how to save someone's life with the use of naloxone and Narcan. In the almost 5 years I've been doing that, I've probably trained, facilitated 1,000 trainings, trained 10,000 people, distributed 20,000 kits. Yeah, but I also own a home. I vote, I pay taxes. I do all those things that normal people do too now, which is really cool. I guess I never would have thought, if I look back that some of these things would ever be possible. But I always say too, if I don't put my recovery first, everything else comes last. And Absolutely. So I always like to, that's just right in the front of my brain. But I'm also a formerly incarcerated person. And what that looks like is and I'm not going to talk much about the bad or the dark days because I think it's just not necessary. Recovery to me, I want to focus on the positive and the good things. But I am a formerly incarcerated person that was sentenced to 87 months in prison as a first-time nonviolent drug offender with almost zero criminal history. Back in 2004, when I was arrested for selling drugs to support a really bad addiction, I got caught with a lot of drugs. And at the time, too, we had some different laws in place where anyone with 5 grams of crack cocaine or more automatically qualified for a federal case. And so because I did have 40 grams of crack cocaine amongst the other drugs I got caught with, that automatically qualified me to be a federal case, which since then, those laws have changed. That wouldn't occur today to someone. And thank God I've actually also been able to help be part of those changes in my experience. But in 2004, when I was arrested, there's certain days in your life, I was saying this earlier to Higgy, that you just never forget. And I think that's one of them. I remember my sister called me that morning, and she lives in St. Paul. It was summertime. It was our nice weather. It was actually, short weather and t-shirt weather and 75 and sunny. And she said, "Hey, my lawnmower broke and I don't know what to do. And my sister didn't have a lot of money. So I had money. I was selling drugs. My bills were paid. I was still doing pretty good. And so I just said, I'll go out and buy a lawnmower. So I ran out to Home Depot that morning. I picked her up a lawnmower, brought it to her house, put it together, came home from that and pulled into my parking lot of my apartment complex, a condo I owned. And as soon as I parked into my assigned parking spot, my vehicle was surrounded by, I don't know, at least a dozen vehicles, all with DEA badge, bulletproof vests on, guns drawn, all unmarked vehicles. And, they made me get out of the car in normal fashion, reach around with your right hand and lift the handle and hands on top of the head on the ground and cuff me and stuff me and bring me up to my condo. And I walked where I lived. You couldn't see my building from the parking lot, but as you got around one building, you could see mine. I could see all of my drapes. My sliding glass door was open and dozens of people mulling through my condo, and my cats were running all over outside. And that was pretty scary. Like, you see those things on TV. If anybody watches the show Cops, yes. you see that stuff, but you really don't. Like sometimes you think that's not real or doesn't happen. Well, guess what?
You play it out in your head. You play it out in your head, and
right.
you never really think it's going to actually happen. And here it is in real life happening to you. It had to seem so surreal.
Yeah, you think at that point you don't know what to expect. All I remember is them like being very, tell us everything they're asked. I didn't really talk much. I don't remember talking at all, hardly, but I do remember the first words I did speak when they threatened me with, we're going to give you 5 years for this, 5 years for this, 5 years for this, and you're going to go to prison for a long time and all these threats. And I just remember the first words out of my mouth then were, I would like a lawyer, please. And that was the end. That was the end of the questioning. Like, okay, haul you off to jail now. And, but anyway, so my path through thank God for my sister. She was a nurse at the biggest hospital in our county here in Hennepin County. And I was incarcerated, and she said, hey, you should get a Rule 25. That's what we call it here, a chemical health assessment. And they'll let you go to treatment. I said, they'll let me go out of jail to go somewhere. I'm like, she goes, sure they will. I'm like, sign me up. How do I do that? And so I ended up going to treatment at a residential treatment program. I was admitted as an outpatient at a place called Eden House, which, if anyone's familiar with the Eden, it's been around since 1971. It's a really old school treatment center, behavior modification program, therapeutic community, total accountability type program. You don't see a whole lot of those around anymore. But yeah, and I was wondering, they often refer to Eden House as the place where they send the worst of the worst or the throwaways. And I was thinking, why are they sending me to this place? It's my first treatment. I've never been in trouble before. Thank God they sent me there, though, because that's really what I needed. But after a few weeks in treatment and a relapse and bringing drugs to the treatment center and getting arrested and thrown back in jail and then coming back to the residential program and doing all that stuff, I always say it took me about 60 days to complete 10 months to complete a 60-day program. I was a hardhead, but I think everyone does that's been through that path. I think it's similar. So I don't think mine's unique to mine. It's probably the same story you could hear from everyone. But anyways, eventually I just decided, and really I never forget the day that I decided recovery might be an option for me. I came back after being arrested and thrown back in jail after relapsing and bringing drugs to the treatment center. And this guy, our senior counselor there, name's Mark Lindgren, big dude, 6'6", 280 pounds, been to state prison. Rumors were he had put guns to cops' heads and just a really badass guy. And I had never had to interact with him much prior to that, but he had to give me my UA when I came back. And so we're in the UA bathroom and he's saying things to me, really derogatory things that I couldn't believe someone was saying to another person. And I won't repeat some of those things he said, but really just mean. That's the best word to say here, is just plain mean. And I didn't say anything. Like, I just kept my mouth shut and just let him rip me a new one. But then I do remember, though, when he said, the last thing he said to me before the light bulb kind of started to flicker, was he said, "Randy, you know what? I don't know why I'm wasting my time, because this recovery shit's not for you anyways. You can't do it." So there it was. There was the switch, the father switch that he turned on, because I grew up with a dad who was very abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally, verbally. I was never good enough. He said things like, nobody remembers who won second place, either first place or nothing. Well, all that stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us have dads like that, especially us a little bit older guys. Anyway, so he flipped that father switch on me, and I said, in my head, I said, don't tell me what the F I can't do, because I can do anything. Right. And so I made a conscious decision right at that moment to give this a try. Like, I'll listen to what these people have to say. And next thing I know, I'm like in groups, I'm participating, I'm like doing recovery, and here I am sober, and I'm actually learning and developing a new way to live. And I always say January 10th, 2005 was my rebirth day. It's the day that the old Randy kind of started to go away and the new Randy was being developed. But yeah, and then so I went through treatment, I completed, but near the end of my treatment stay, I had to go and kind of pay the consequences for my crimes. And so I remember going to court that day, and the judge, to go get sentenced. And God, this is like hard to talk about sometimes. Wow. Even after 15 years. Whew. Oh, sorry about that. I just remember him saying, Mr. Anderson, I've seen that you're done really well in treatment. Other than that, he reminded me of my little slip I had bringing drugs to the treatment center. But he did say, I've seen you've done really well. You're getting your life back in order. You have tons of letters of recommendation from community members. Your treatment center wrote a great letter for you. And because of all that, I'm gonna give you a break today. I'm going to sentence you to the lowest level the lowest amount of time on your level. And so and those of us that are involved with the justice system, there's this staircase that we all know about. Like, everyone that's watching, or what I'm talking about, Higgy, it's the dreaded staircase. So I was a level 32 with zero criminal history points, but because of the level 32, I was way up on that staircase. And I knew that range was 87 to 108 months. But you know what, and I never thought that would ever happen. My lawyer kept saying to me, you're going to go to prison for a long time. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, our country doesn't do this to people. I have a disease that I was, I just never believed it. And all of a sudden the judge says, Mr. Anderson, so I'm going to sentence you to the lowest amount on your level. I'm going to sentence you to 87 months in prison.
Holy crap.
Yeah, right. That's exactly. And I remember pretty much bawling like a baby. And I just, again, the thought, our country does this to people. Like, I mean, I'm starting to get my life back. I'm in recovery. I'm like not committing crimes anymore. Anyways. And then but a little side.
That's over 7 years.
Yeah, correct. For selling drugs. I mean, murderers get less time than me, things like that. So I remember I did kind of make a little joke because a little bit of a smart aleck. And he said, he said, I'm going to allow you to self-surrender to prison. How much time do you think you need to get your affairs in order? And I said, I don't know, is a year too much time? And he goes, no, I'm not going to give you a year. You have 6 weeks. And so he says, August 17, 2005, you will report to the prison that they tell you to report to. And in about a week later, I got a letter in the mail, telling me that that day at 2 p.m. I would report to Waseca Federal Prison down in southern Minnesota. And another really tough day. I remember my two best friends at the time driving me. My friend Corey, who had a little wiener dog named Lucy, and my friend Heidi, who were one of my best friends. And they drove me from Minneapolis down to Waseca, which is about an hour and a half drive. And I don't think we said a word the entire way down there. Like, we stopped at breakfast, but then after the breakfast, we didn't say anything. Like, it was silent for an hour and a half. And if we did, I don't remember it. So maybe there was conversation, but I just remember them going down there. And then you go up to this building and, there's this actually not a horrible looking place from the front. Like, you see this nice glass building with the sliding glass doors. You walk in, those doors open and there's an attractive person sitting at a desk with flowers and welcome to prison, blah, blah, blah.
Wow. The house of pain.
Yeah. Right. And and then watching your friends walk away and pretty tough, but then you go through the second door after you check in, and that's the secure door, and you hear that thing slam behind you. And then you realize you're not going anywhere for a long time. And you really don't know. I mean, you hear all, and I'm not going to make fun of people, but the jailhouse attorneys, everyone's telling you, this is how long you'll do this. But you know what? There's no guarantee. I mean, even if so I was in the federal system and you do 85% of your time, but that all depends on if you don't get into any trouble while you're in prison, because then they can take away good time and all that other stuff. So there's really no saying how long you're going to be there. I mean, I don't care what anybody tells you. So anyway, I did that. I went to prison, and then I think those of us with the disease of addiction, we're very resilient people. Like, we overcome stuff. Wherever we are, we learn how to survive, right? And for me, prison was no different. I learned how to survive in prison. I was not a role model inmate. So I'm going to be really clear. I'm not an angel. I did not have a halo. I sold tobacco in prison when it was illegal to do that. I ran a poker table. I had an inmate store. I did things to survive, though, because in the prison system at that time, I mean, a person got paid. I got paid $5 a month. I was a yard crew, so I would shovel a sidewalk in the winter or pick up trash in the summer. Really stupid, simple job, but $5 a month. And just to use the phones in prison for 300 minutes costs $69. Yes. So how does $5 a month get you anything? It doesn't. And so you learn to do hustles. And in federal system, we have
very resourceful.
Yeah, I learned how to hustle. I learned how to make money and live. I would also say, even though I was making $200 to $300 a month, I was living high on the hog in prison. That's a lot of money incarcerated. I mean, that's like a good job out in the real world. So anyway, so I did the prison thing. I remember getting out. I'm gonna get out in 2009 and stay in the halfway house for a while. And there's another weird thing. So you get in this halfway house and they tell you that you gotta pay 25% of your gross income. You can't get a real job because you're a felon now. I mean, you're all these barriers. And so I remember taking a job because I wanted to get. So you can't even get out of the halfway house like on leisure stuff until you have an employment. And so there's all these rules. And so I took a job as a telemarketer. Here I am 2009, so I was 39, just turning 40 years of age. And I took a job for $8.50 an hour as a telemarketer in a phone room, like a home improvement company. I wanted to get out of there so badly that I would do anything. And I made the commitment long before that I would do whatever it takes. And just to understand to no matter what I do, those are all steps only. None of that is permanent. Like it's just this thing. It's just a step to get to the next thing. And that's the way I look at everything. So I did that for several months until I was out of the halfway house. But while you're there, they take 25% of your gross income. They expect you to save money so you can get your own place, but you're making $8.50 an hour. And, you get any kind of apartment and a first month's rent and damage deposit. It's the system is so broken. It doesn't work that way. I'm super lucky. So a lot of things are going in my favor. I'm educated. I'm white. I'm middle-aged. I have skills. Those things worked in my favor. I met someone that had a basement for rent and they needed help fixing their basement. They would give me cheap rent. So we worked out a deal. I could stay there. So I just had a lot of things working in my favor. And that one thing I learned while I was in prison, I just want to back up for a second, is I didn't realize like the racial disparities that exist in our system. I didn't know that, like I was blinded to it or just didn't know, like people, the same crime as me, but if you're Black or you're an indigenous person, you got sentenced to way more time than Randy did. And that was like an eye opener for me while I was incarcerated. Not that I could do anything about it or didn't understand it. But anyways, I got out of prison, got through the telemarketing thing, went into home improvement sales, what I like to do. And, I remember all the doom and gloom in prison. You'll never amount to anything. Expect less because now you have your 3-time felony, blah, 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 all this stuff. You know what? I'm not a person that takes no for an answer. I've never accepted that. And so, and this isn't meant to, I'm not saying this to brag or to sound, but my first full year out of prison as a home improvement salesman, I made $106,000 selling siding, windows, attic insulation, roofing, things for houses, right? I was good at it. I worked in construction my whole life. So all that gloom and doom that you'll never amount to anything is just, excuse my French, it's bullshit. If you want to buy into that, that's what you'll get. And again, poor me. But again, I can't imagine what it's like for a person that's Black. Like it's probably way more difficult than it is for a person like me that's white, that that is able to articulate and talk well and do all that stuff. So anyways, I did that, and I did sales for a long time, a few years after prison. I eventually got fired from a job for the first time in my entire life. The owner and I disagreed on something, and he shit canned me. He said, "You're fired," and that was an eye opener. My wife always says the universe sends signs at us. And sometimes, most of the time, those signs are flying by us and we don't even see them. Then every once in a while, there's a sign that gives us a good slap across the face, and it's time to pay attention. And that was the sign for me for getting fired from a job. Like, what does this mean? Like, what is this? What am I supposed to do now? And so what did I do? I decided with the help, I always say I was coerced, but I was convinced by my wife that maybe college would be a good idea. I thought, no way, I'm 43 years of age. I got a GED that I got while I was in federal prison. College just isn't important to me. Like education, I just didn't think I needed it. Boy, was I wrong. Was I wrong. And you know what? The one thing I love about my recovery today is I do love being wrong. Like I don't mind when I'm wrong. It feels great because boy, I learned something. Somebody else got to benefit from it, whatever. It's cool to be wrong today. Like I'm okay with that. So anyways, I enrolled in college. I decided I wanted to be an addiction counselor. I thought, what better, I always thought it'd be a great thing with recovery and this. So here I am. That journey I finally finished after 5 years. And now I hold 2 degrees and it's really amazing. I have an Associate's of Science degree in addiction counseling, and I have a bachelor. Yeah, thanks. And I have a bachelor's of arts in human services, and I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor for the state of Minnesota. Like, can you, I know, right? Like, is that's shit.
You started this journey at age 43, correct?
Yeah, it's college. I started at 43, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so what college did for me, though, it's really I would encourage anyone, if you have the opportunity to go back to school now, no matter what age you are, you should go. Like, you should just go. I don't, if you would have asked me this 5 years ago, I would have said no way. But again, thanks to my wife, she's right. Education is important. What college did for me, so when I got my associate's degree, I was able to take 2 years of my life off because I had money saved from the sales gig. I had a spouse, or we were engaged at the time. We were married by then, but she has a good job. So we were okay financially. So, but what college did for me, it opened my eyes up to a bunch of other things. That's where my advocacy work started, is in college. I started to get, at first I started, my wife said, one day, I remember about a year into it, she says, honey, you've lost a word in your vocabulary. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, so the word no, you have to find it again because you're saying yes to everything and you're going to kill yourself. Like you're literally going to drive yourself into the ground.
Too.
Yeah.
I'm
so right.
Guy.
Exactly. I still have trouble saying no. I don't even say no anymore. What I do when people ask me something, I say, so what is your expectations? How much time will this be for me? How, what are you hoping to get out of it? So I ask a whole bunch of qualifying questions now before I even say no. And so it's not even a no. It's just like, and it's good though. I mean, I've learned to balance that. But anyway, so one of the things I was most proud of is I learned about an organization called the Minnesota Second Chance Coalition. And so they were formed about 12 years ago, 2006 or 7. A woman by the name of Sarah Walker started it. She moved here from New York, and she saw this big gap in our system here in Minnesota where for her, it was more about, like she was a lobbyist, so she did work at the Capitol, but at the Capitol that time, there were nobody representing the voices of those impacted by the systems that were created, like no one. So she decided to do something. So she formed this organization, and now I'm really grateful to be part of that, like to carry on that legacy. And because of that, how it started, my real advocacy started 2015. So those that know me, if anyone's on the line, you guys, a lot of you are used to seeing me in my felon shirt, like the black shirt with the white felon logo on it.
That was the first time I ever seen you online. He was wearing that, and I was like, I love that.
Yeah,
because I'm a felon too.
Right, and so many of us are, right? And so anyway, so I was asked to testify in front of our Drug Sentencing Guideline Commission. So the Minnesota legislation has this commission who has citizens and attorney generals and Minnesota Supreme Court justices that all sit on this commission to decide our drug sentencing guidelines. And they're like, you should go testify during these hearings. I'm like, I can't do that. Like, no. They're like, and my friend Mark Hasse, who's awesome, he ran for sheriff or Hennepin County attorney this last election cycle, and he lost. But he's like, Randy, your story is very impactful. Like, you were a first-time felon, and first time, all this stuff happened to you. They need to hear why these laws don't work. Like, you're the perfect example of like why it was a waste of money to spend $250,000 on you to put in prison was stupid. I mean, that's what they spent on me. Like, that was a complete waste of tax dollar money for that. So anyway, so I remember testifying. So December 23rd, 2015, the day before Christmas Eve, they had convened this hearing, and I signed up to testify. And here I'm wearing my felon shirt, and I'm telling my story. I'm less like I'm doing now, just in a really condensed version, like my story. And the local newspaper took a photograph of that, and I made the front page, although I was below the fold, which I heard is a real thing recently. I was on the bottom. I didn't know that was a thing till recently. But there I am, my picture of me on the front page of the Star and Tribune, and it says, felon testifies at drug sentencing hearing. And so with the work of the Second Chance Coalition and my testimony and that of many others, Minnesota changed their guidelines. And in August of 2016, those changes went into effect, and 700 less people go to prison every year in Minnesota because of those changes.
That's beautiful.
So, right. So that was it for me.
Because you found the balls to go in and talk and tell your story. You found the courage to walk through fear and use your story and make it impactful. And you made a difference by using your voice.
Yeah. And I used to believe, so I'm a pretty cynical guy. And the old Randy would have told you that one vote, one person, one vote, one voice doesn't make a difference. Like, bull crap. And you know what? I was wrong. Again, I'm so happy that I was wrong, because I realized that, one person, one vote, one voice really can make a difference. Not every time. And, let's keep our expectations realistic. Like, not every time will it make a difference, but there are many times it will. And you should never, I had a coach once, I was also in sports as a kid, and I had a coach once say to me, Randy, you're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so I thought, wow. So that like applies to life for me. That's just not about a game. That's like life. Like, every shot you get in life, you should take that shot. Like, and who cares? Like, if it doesn't work out and something doesn't, whatever. It's fine. So that opened my eyes up to this whole world of like citizen lobbying, advocacy, and things like that. And so over the years, I've done, just to highlight a couple things. So one thing happened in 2016, Nordstrom's had a line of clothing called the Capsule Collection. And it was a clothing line and accessory line with pills all over, prescription pills all over it, like a kid's backpack and this and that. Yeah. And And I was appalled. Like I remember that day sitting on my computer, just where I'm sitting now, having my cup of coffee on a Sunday morning and or Saturday morning and seeing this. And I was just appalled. I'm like, do they not know that our country's in the middle of a prescription pill epidemic? Like people are dying in mass numbers every day because of that. So I decided to do something. So I emailed them. And I emailed Nordstrom's and I got the generic response saying, we're sorry, this may have offended you. We serve a diverse population. We hope you choose to use or do business with Nordstrom's in the future. And that was kind of just a generic response. And that's not good enough. So I emailed back and I said, I added some more words and same response. So finally I decided to start, I never did this before, but I've seen people do it, these change.org online petitions, right? I'm going to start one of those. And so I wrote up this huge blurb from the CDC guy, all the overdose deaths. And it was really, I thought I did a good job. But then what the key to that was, and this was a while ago, so Facebook algorithms were a little different, but I ended up sharing that change.org petition to 3,000 Facebook pages or Facebook groups. Yeah, I figured out how if you just change one syllable, the Facebook algorithms doesn't like catch you and doesn't say you're spamming and blah. So I learned a lot that day as well. But I was able to share it, and within 3 days, I had over 4,000 signatures on that petition. And wow. I had caught the attention of the local media. I did some stories there. NPR saw it on Twitter because I was doing on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They reached out to me. I did an interview on NPR, but the one that did it was Fox News New York. So Wednesday morning, I go into my work. I'm a counselor at Eden House Treatment Center, and there's this voicemail that says, hi, Mr. Anderson. This is Christina Corbin from Fox News New York, and we saw your online petition, and we're wondering if you would like to do an interview. And first I thought this is bull crap. Like, this is a joke. One of my coworkers is playing a really good joke on me. Because first of all, how did they get my number? Well, it's the power of the internet. Not that difficult, right? So I decided I'm going to call it back. So I call it back, and sure enough, this lady answers, hi, this is Christina Corbin. I said, with Fox News New York? And she goes, all right. And I did look her up online, and she's a real person to make sure. And she goes, yes. Who is this? Can I help you?
I said, done the same thing.
I'm like, no, I just didn't believe it. And so I call her, and she says, yep. And I said, she goes, who is this? I said, Randy. And she goes, oh my God, I'm so glad you called me back. So we saw your petition. And she goes, I actually just walked back from Nordstrom's. I went down there to look at because they're one of the New York stores right by their news station. She goes, I saw the clothing line, and it's appalling. Like, it's even ugly, she said, but it's really disgusting what's going on in our country. And then they decide to promote something like this. So I'm wondering, she goes, would you interview? So I did this interview. They ran the story that night, that afternoon on Fox News, all over their media and whatever. It was everywhere. And the next morning at about 10 a.m., I get a call from Christina. She goes, Randy, I just got off the phone with Nordstrom's, and they've decided to pull the entire clothing line from all their stores and all of their online locations. She goes, congratulations, you win. And I'm like, no, I was just in shock. I'm like, no way did this works? Like, no way. And then about 20 minutes later, I get an email from Nordstrom's saying, Mr. Anderson, after further review, we've decided this isn't best practices for us. We're a family-oriented company. We apologize for how this may have you reaction. Well, just a great email. And then at the end, though, I'll never forget the last line. It says, we hope this resolves the matter for you. And so I'm like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I actually did that. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, I actually got a huge department store to remove an entire clothing line.
One person's voice.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's
one person's voice.
And all those signatures, because it helped. I mean, I had people signing. I had 26 countries sign my petition. Like, it was amazing. I know it was amazing. So
that's beautiful.
And that was that's one of my favorite stories. But I've done a couple easy things. Like, shortly after that, a friend of mine was at the University of Minnesota, and they were at the bookstore, and there was a pill bottle on the shelf with 3 golf balls in it. And it said, take one daily to relieve stress. And my friend shot a picture of it and said, Randy, it looks like another Nordstrom. And so that night I'm like, you know what? That is offensive. So that's ridiculous. So I just put an email together, a really simple email to the University of Minnesota president and the bookstore president. And I found their email addresses online, and I sent them a nice email saying, hey, I don't know if you know, but our country's in the middle of an opioid epidemic and from prescription pill deaths. And I just did another, all the time you try to keep your language the same. So like my Nordstrom thing, the language is very similar to what I use at the university. But anyways, 8:01 a.m. I sent the email like at 9 o'clock at night. 8:01, like the bookstore opened at 8 o'clock. 8:01 a.m. I get an email back from the bookstore president. saying, Mr. Anderson, we apologize. We're unaware of how this may be perceived in the community, and we, at a higher ed institution, we don't promote this type of stuff, and we have since removed the golf balls from the shelves. So they stopped selling them. That was an email. That was an email. That's all it took, was an email, and that was gone. So I mean, simple things that I think it's funny. People say and I don't mean to swear too much. I've tried to be good, but
you're good.
My friends say they don't know who they're fucking with, or they're fucking with the wrong guy. My wife says, no, they fucked with the right guy, because the guy that's actually going to do something about it. But I just been super blessed. And people ask me, how did you get into this? Or how did you start doing this? And I don't have a good answer for that. Like, I have a belief, if you see something and you think it's a problem or it shouldn't be happening, and you just kind of put the blinders on and you ignore it, you're still part of the problem. You're not part of this. You're not part of the solution anymore, right? And so for me, there's certain things I just can't, no, I have to do something. Like even our president, I'm not going to bash Trump. I don't like his mouth, but you know what? The guy has given us signed legislation that's given us more funding than any other president. More people in our country are civically engaged because of him, and it's great. But I've emailed him a dozen times, because when he does something and I don't think it's right, I'll email him. I'll email the White House. I've never heard back. I probably never will. But that's okay. I just can't sit by the sidelines and do nothing.
You know, what's that quote? The world isn't a bad place because of evil people. It's because of the good people that stand by and do nothing.
Absolutely. No, 100% true. Another thing I did recently that I'm pretty proud of. So I was coming back last year from the Atlanta conference, the big RX summit, the largest opioid summit conference in the country.
Can you elaborate on that? What that was about, and what you saw, if anything, that was achieved?
Yeah. So what I think that conference does, and for me, I mean, it's a great education because you get to see successful programs from around the country that are really saving lives. And you would never know about them if you would just never hear about them, because they're in some really small town in Louisiana that no one knows about. But because you get to go here and see it, you can see what they're doing, and you can bring that back to your community. They give you the PowerPoint, they give you their contact information. Right now, I know one of the programs that I already saw this year, I'm going to help implement in my local jails here, about making sure people have access to their medications while incarcerated, because here we don't do a good enough job at that, and I want us to do better. But anyway, so last year was so it's called the RX Drug Abuse and Heroin Summit. It's a huge, long, stupid name. But last year I was at that, and Jerome Adams, the Attorney General of the United States, announced at that summit last year that he used his emergency thing I forget what it's called, and he said everyone should carry naloxone. Everyone in the country should just have it. He used an emergency advisory tool that they haven't used in 15 years since they cautioned pregnant women not to smoke. Anyways, I was on a flight back from Atlanta. I got on the plane, and I was in a bulkhead seat where there's no row in front of you. And so you can't put your backpack under it. You have to put it in the overhead, but all the overheads were full. And so I'm sitting there with my backpack, and the lady comes by, the flight attendant, and says, we're going to have to take your backpack here to check it. I said, well, I have over $10,000 worth of medication in this backpack. I just can't put it in the bulkhead hold. I'm worried about the temperature. Anyways, she started to yell at me pretty heavily, and threatened to remove me from the plane. I wasn't cooperating and this and that. She got the gate agent. The gate agent came in, and if you've seen the video of the guy getting yanked off an airplane before, that's what I envisioned I was going to be the next bad guy. Finally, a passenger 2 rows back said, "Hey, sir, I'll check my roller bag so you can put your backpack in the overhead compartment." So a passenger came up with a solution, but it was the way they treated me. I mean, I couldn't believe I was being treated this way no matter what. It was just ridiculous. So I got to Chicago. I had a delayed flight, so I was there for 4 hours. I emailed American Airlines and said this occurred to me, and of course I got the generic email back. So we're really sorry for the inconvenience. We hope you choose to fly with us again. And I'm just laughing. I'm thinking, oh my God, don't these people know that this is not the email to send me? And so I sent an email back to them, said, did you read? It was a book. I wrote a book email about the whole incident. And the person responded, yes, sir, I read your email word for word, and we're really sorry that this occurred. And I'm like, nope. So I got home later that day. The next day I got on my computer and I started looking up reporters that had done stories on people being removed from planes. And I started to email reporters saying, hey, I had this incident. Would you want to hear about this? And I had one guy reach out to me right away. Yep, I can talk to you at noon. We'll do this story. We'll expose them for this, how they treated you, blah, blah. But then my wife, who she's highly connected in some circles. And so she used to work for Delta Airlines, Northwest. So she goes, hold on, honey. I know this woman she's pretty high up in the food chain in American Airlines. Let me call her and see what she says. So we get a hold of her and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry this happened. We'll find out she's the vice president of customer relations for American Airlines.
Wow.
So, yeah, right. And so she goes, let me get the Atlanta team on the phone. This is Sunday or Saturday. 2 hours later, I got a call from someone in Atlanta, the lead person there. We're really sorry this occurred. How can we fix this? And I said, well, I know you're going to give me some miles, like you're going to earn a free trip. And I deserve it because the way you folks treated me, I deserve a free flight from this. But I said, but the only way that this will be resolved for me is that I want every American airline aircraft to carry Narcan. And the lady on the phone says, well, I can't make that decision, sir. And I said, I know you can't, but I bet you know who can. And she goes, well, I'll have to get our medical director on and she goes, it's Sunday and I can't. I said, fine, well, I can do this tomorrow. Like Monday's cool. So the next day I get a call from the medical director for American Airlines. And I told them what happened. And they're like, well, that's a big procedure to add something to our medical kits. And I said, I'm sure it is. I said, but I'm going to tell you something. So you have two choices here. You can see if that's possible, or I can just tell my story. And so right? I mean, I'm not trying to be rude here. I'm just saying that's the choice. So you can decide to look, and I'm not saying you're going to do this tomorrow. I understand this is a procedure, but you're going to start that, or I'll just go to the press with my story. So they decided to start the process. So they started doing reviews of I forget what they called it, risk reward review. If they don't do it, what could happen? But it took them. So March 5th of 2000. So this was April 22nd of 2018, March 5th of 2019. After many emails back and forth and this and that, I received an email from them, which I have saved. It says, Mr. Anderson, it was my original contact, the vice president. She goes, I just want to let you know we've completed all the review process and we're going to start adding Narcan to every medical kit on every aircraft. She goes, I want to let you know that it takes about a year because as we rotate them, every time a kit comes off and gets reviewed, we will then add Narcan to it. And to get it into every aircraft will take about a year. And I go, oh my, and there it is. I couldn't believe it. Once again, I just changed. Right. Now every American airline aircraft will have Narcan on it because of something that happened to me. And so that's the kind of advocacy. So I've been super blessed or lucky or whatever the word is, but things have hit me. And then I'm like, this is an opportunity to do something else. Right. It's that sign things my wife talks about, those signs. Yeah. And that one's like another slap in the face, right? So again, I've just been super lucky with things, and I'm like, how did you do this? I said, I don't know. I just kept moving forward, just do the next right thing, and the next best thing will happen to you. I guarantee it. A lot of people, that's hard for them to comprehend, and I get it in early recovery because everything looks bad. You're bored. You don't have a lot of friends. I get that, but eventually, if you keep doing the right thing, it'll get better. I guarantee it. I've proven that to myself that it does get better. And I think the one thing, I don't know how long we have today, but one thing I wanted to quick talk about, and if I didn't talk about, my friends that are watching would be like, oh my God, Randy, I can't believe you didn't talk about it. I see my friend Lynn. I'm looking at some of the names. I haven't been watching, but Lynn Kelly's on there. Hi, Lynn. Thanks for watching. So there's this organization, and I'm just going to use their name. So Addiction Policy Forum, who has a national org that at one time we thought they were meeting with the presidents, Chris Christie, advising them on the opioid epidemic and things like that. Well, I had learned in December of 2017 that they formed a partnership with an organization called PhRMA, which is PHRMA. It stands for the Pharmaceutical Research Manufacturers of America. And who they are is they're the lobbying arm of the pharmaceutical industry. So if you look them up, every one of their board members is a CFO or a COO or a CEO of one of the major pharmaceutical companies. And I had learned that Addiction Policy Forum had received millions of dollars from this pharma group. And so I started digging. And sure enough, then they came into Minnesota, and they tried to derail some opioid legislation we had. So it really sparked me. I was like, no, this is not acceptable. So I started to dig deeper. And all of a sudden, March of last year, my friend calls me and said, hey, by the way, just to let you know, the CEO of Addiction Policy Forum is testifying at a congressional hearing in March, and you should go disrupt her testimony. I'm like, what? I'm like, no, I'm not a disruptor. I testified hearings. I don't disrupt hearings. She goes, but Randy, like, she came to your state and she tried to meet with your legislators. They've done, I mean, you're just the perfect guy. I'm like, oh my God. So I Google searched how to disrupt a congressional hearing. Pretty funny. If you actually do that, the videos you'll see, like people in chicken suits and all kinds of weird stuff. And so I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try to do this in the most respectful, disruptive way possible. And so March 22nd, 2 days after my birthday, 2018, I got on a plane, which, by the way, DC had a snowstorm, and my flight got canceled twice. I didn't get to DC until like 1:30 in the morning, and the hearing started at 8. But anyway, so I go to this hearing. I sit there for 3 hours. For the first panel that was up. But then the next panel came up who had the CEO of Addiction Policy Forum. And as soon as she opened her mouth, I stood up, I unfolded, I had a sign folded up in my backpack. I unfolded my sign and I said to the first words out of my mouth were, excuse me, Mr. Chair and committee members, I apologize for my disruption, but I'm here to ask Addiction Policy Forum, how much money have they received from the pharmaceutical industry? We've asked these questions. So I just went into my little bit of a rant. I only got about a minute and a half because I didn't want to get arrested, so I knew that was a possibility. But so there's a video. If you go to C-SPAN or on my Facebook page, you'll see it where I actually got on C-SPAN for about a minute, 30 seconds. And the point of that was I didn't want someone that's being paid by the pharmaceutical industry to influence how my tax dollars are spent. I mean, to me, there's just a huge conflict there. The same people that created the epidemic are paying this organization to decide how my tax dollars are being spent. That's not okay with me. That's unethical. It's immoral, whatever word you want to use for it. And so at the end of those 2-day hearings, there was a 6-page report that was put out. And it highlighted all the testimony and everything. But one thing that was left out of that report, there was no mention of Addiction Policy Forum or the woman's testimony. It was completely left out of the entire brief. And so mission accomplished. Like they didn't have, at least in that instance, they weren't able to influence our policymakers to decide how my tax dollars are spent. And so that's one thing I've been very vocal about. And I know, Higgy, when we first talked, I have to be very careful who I align with or partner with, because I want to be very careful. If I'm going to be this outspoken about organizations taking money from pharmaceutical companies, I don't want to make sure I don't align myself with one of those individuals or companies. So Absolutely. I always ask qualifying questions, and it's not to be a dick or to be an ass.
I got vetted, and
right, exactly.
And we're here today because of my stance on things and where I am.
Right. So that's some of the big things I've been able to do in the 4 or 5 years I've been on this current path, I'd say, since getting out of prison and getting fired and going to college. That's kind of when my trajectory changed. But
you made the best of a bad scenario, and it changed the course of your life forever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
and the community you live in.
I hope so. I mean, it's great. It just blows me away. Even today. So I've had a ton of come circle moments in my life. And today, so I was recently appointed to so we have the Hennepin County Sheriff's Community Advisory Board. So it's a big, long name. It's the largest county, most populated county in our state. And it also happens to be a county where I've been arrested multiple times and spent many days in the jail there when in a previous life. And today I was in that today. So I've been appointed to that board. So today I was sitting in a room in the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office at the Minneapolis City Hall in the same building. And then the weird part for me was, so after the meeting, we took photographs we have to get ID badges to identify us as a board member. And the last time I was in that building and had a picture taken, it was when I was being booked into custody. Yes. And so today, I know, right? So today I was sitting in that building and I got a picture taken, and I wasn't being booked into custody. Because I'm now working with the sheriff's department to help them make policy around substance use disorder, criminal justice issues, things like that. So that's just one tiny example. I mean, Amy Klobuchar. So those that, she's running for president, this and that. So in 2004, she was the Hennepin County District Attorney. So she prosecuted my state case. Because of her prosecution, part of my sentence, 48 months of my sentence was state charges. So I had 87 months from federal and at a 48-month state charge. They ran concurrent, not consecutive, so that actually, I didn't have to do time on top of time. But so it's funny that, and she probably she probably can't win the presidency. She doesn't have enough money. I mean, who knows? If she were to become president and then she were to pardon me, because that's when I'll be eligible for my federal pardon, she would be the only president. So I tried looking this up. I couldn't find another. The only president to pardon the same person that they were responsible for putting in jail. Right.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that would be really cool. And I've got to work with Amy now over the last few years. And it's really amazing. I got to tell her the story because she didn't remember who I was, and why would she? I mean, she prosecuted thousands of cases, right? But we were at an event together at Hazelden up in Center City, Minnesota, where everybody knows Hazelden, the big treatment provider. And she was there, and I got to tell her who I was and introduce myself and told her that, you sentenced, because of your case, I was sentenced to 48 months in prison. And then here we are now working together to solve this crisis. And so it's, again, another one of those full circle moments where the same person responsible for incarcerating me, I'm now working with to help save others. I just get blown away by those things. Like, it's just amazing.
That's such an amazing testimony. So say someone wants to get started being an activist or advocate in their communities. What suggestions would you give them to get started?
So easy stuff you can start by doing is, find out who your city council members are or your mayor is, or all of them. Because they actually have a lot of influence in your own little local community. And so it's a real easy thing to do. Most city council meetings in any town are public events. You just had to find out when they are, and you can go sit in there and you can hear about the issues that are going on. But what that does is, once you start going to enough of those, the city council members, they're not a lot of people attend those. So if you're there, they'll start to know, hey, who is this person that keeps attending these? And they want to know who you are and why you're there. And that's a really good way to find out about local issues or to connect with your local community. So I think I still go to them all the time. I think my friends think you're such a nerd now. Like, you go to city council meetings. I'm like, they're cool. I like sitting in a city council meeting. So that's one easy way. Another way, so like your state capital, and I'm lucky enough, I only live 15 miles or 20 miles from my state capital. So I'm close. Not everyone has that. I get that. But I didn't even know, here's how funny this is. I didn't even know I was allowed in that building. The first time I went there was 2014 after I got out of prison. And they had a recovery day on the Hill. So I celebrated recovery at the Capitol. And they brought us up and we were allowed, I'm like, we're allowed in this building? I didn't even know. I thought, because two reasons, I'm a felon now. I'm like, but it's your building. Even with a person with a record, guess what? You're still allowed in that building. And
I always avoided places with lots of police.
Right? Well, it's funny. Exactly. I do a lot of charity 5Ks today. And my friends are like, do you run? I said, I only run from the police. And that hasn't happened for a long time. So no, I don't run.
That's
so hilarious. They can just go to, so find out who your state legislators are. So everyone has a state representative and a state senator, and even your governor. I know all those people. Just go. You don't even have to, there's easy things you can do to be civically engaged or do advocacy without saying anything. Sometimes just when there's a bill being heard and it's to something that we support, we won't even go to testify. We just get 20 people together to go sit in the room and all wear the same color t-shirt or whatever it is, just to show unity that we're all there to support that issue. And usually the legislators will point out, they'll say, there's a group here today to support this, and they'll point at us because they know we're there for that. And we're not saying anything. We're just sitting there, but just showing that, having that representation in that room is so powerful. And the other legislators there, then, oh my God, if you can get 20 people to come for this, it must be important, right? And so the simple things to do, go to a hearing, go sit in your Capitol. I know it sounds like, oh my God, you couldn't even not go sit. Really, go do it. If you go, when I walk into my state Capitol, there's this big pegboard, and every day they update it with the committee schedule and what hearings and what bills. And you can just go in there and literally some days, when I'm bored, and here comes the nerd again, me, there's none of my bills are being heard, but I'm near the Capitol. I'll just stop there, park, I'll go in and I'll read the board. Oh, this bill sounds kind of cool. I'll just go sit in this hearing and see what it's about. And I'll just go sit in a hearing room. And it's funny, the same legislators that you see all the time are still in those hearing rooms too. So it's just once they start to see your face a lot and identify that you're there, they actually want to know, like they'll start to talk to you like, so what's your story or why? And then you can start that conversation and tell your like, hey, I'm a person in recovery and this is really important to me because, or whatever. And so those are simple ways to get involved, like just showing up. I mean, honestly, look, in our addiction, what did we not do? We didn't show up for things like, right? When we said we say we'd be at a birthday party or a concert or whatever. We didn't show up. We have every excuse in the book, or we just wouldn't even, not even excuse, we just wouldn't plain show up. And so I think one of the most important things a person can do in their recovery is just show up. Just be present, because that being present is so important. But then if you find out that you do have a voice, like I didn't know I had this voice, like that first time I testified, I had no idea it'd be something that I actually enjoyed and would like doing. But I stepped out of my comfort zone. I took that risk. I took that chance. And I found out, like again, back to the one person, one voice, one vote doesn't make a difference. But my friend said, just think of every time you're at the Capitol, even if you're not saying anything, you're there representing thousands of people that can't, won't, or don't know how to do what you do. Exactly. And if you look at it that way, think of the power that you have. Now, don't let that go to your head and this big ultra ego. Oh, I'm this, because if you do that, you're done. I mean, I'm sorry. You gotta try to stay as humble as you can in this. For me, it's always remembering that like there was people before me that created this path. They made a path that I get to walk on every day because someone struggled and told their story. So my responsibility is to do that same thing for the people coming behind me, that I need to create this path and this space for them to be able to do the same thing. Because I won't be around forever. Someone else is gonna have to do this.
That's so very, very symbolic of recovery as a whole. Right. Just carry on with what tools you were given and show somebody else how to do it. And then it works the same way in advocacy and activism as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's me in a nutshell. I mean, I could go on and on probably, but I think that's just for those in recovery, or just starting in recovery, or you don't know, you're trying to find your path. I'm telling you, just show up. Like the easiest thing you can do is just show up and just keep showing up. And I mean, I know I'm not an AA or an NA guy, and I know that's like a thing in AA, just keep coming back. It works. Yeah. But you know what? But it's the same thing with like being an advocate or advocacy. Just show up. Like just show up. I mean, your face, your presence has power. And it's important that you can understand and know that. So
that's amazing. That's great advice, great suggestions, from someone that has walked that path and is really affecting change, not only locally in your area, but nationally as well.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough, so I'm kind of well known for my provocative T-shirts and bullhorn, and I've been the lead rally marshal at many national protests and rallies outside the White House many times, the Health and Human Services building for the FDA.
Like that sounds like a real blast.
It's perfect for me. I'm a loud guy, so give me a bullhorn. I mean, I get to be louder and obnoxious. This is perfect for me. But that stuff's like super important too. Like we also need those loud voices. They have a place, and I was invited to a thing in a couple months back. A little tiny event, but a big group, powerful people there. It was at the Georgetown University, the McDonald School of Business, and they brought together a bunch of big organizations. The Truth Initiative, the ONDCP's office was there, Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, CVS Health, Pew Trust Industries, Clinton Foundation, like big and here I am. I'm this Randy Anderson from Minnesota Second Chance Coalition. And Leslie Crutchfield put it on. She's an amazing woman. If you ever have a chance to read her book, it's called How Change Happens. Amazing woman. But I met her in an event like 6 or 8 months before that, and she was very like impressed with my story. So she wanted me to be there amongst these giants. But it was one of those moments. I'm sitting in this room and everyone's introducing themselves, and I'm like, why am I here? Like, why? And then one of my friends, Gina Evans, who I sit on the board for the Second Chance Coalition with, she told me I need to quit saying that, because she goes, you're there, Randy, because people are noticing in you and they want you there. Like they want your voice there. They want to hear what you have to say. And you just have to start accepting that. And it's just hard for me. I'm still thinking I'm just this guy from Minnesota. Who am I? I'm nobody. But I just have to quit. Maybe my wife says to me, she hopes I never lose that because it keeps me grounded and humble, that I'm still thinking that I'm just this. I am running for office though, so that might change things. Yeah, nice. I think I said next year I'm starting a campaign for either Minnesota House or Minnesota Senate, but I'm hoping to take a seat in 2022 or 2024. I'm not going to do. We
need more people in recovery running for political offices for sure to affect real change.
Yeah, I had a mentor once say to me, and I love the saying: either you have a seat at the table or you're probably on the menu. And so I'm not on anyone's menu, by the way. So, but yeah, so I mean. And again, I could ramble on for hours, and I don't want to. I know we're a little over an hour now, but that's great. I really appreciate it. This has been awesome. I love. I hope some people got a bunch. I hope some people got a bunch of stuff out of it. I didn't get a chance. I'm not good at multitasking, reading the comments, and staying on task. So I don't know if I can go back later and read them. I certainly will, but.
Definitely. Please do. I want to give a couple of people a shout out in the comments. Ginger Hollis, congratulations on 1 year of continuous sobriety.
Oh my God, awesome. That's amazing.
Bradley Bagwell celebrates 11 months today. Love you. So proud of you. That's 11 months is huge. 1 year is a huge.
Oh my God, 1 month is huge.
Let's keep stacking days, guys. Please do. Please continue to share this out. Thank you, Randy, for being here. Thank you for all the knowledge and the wisdom you imparted on us, sharing of your stories. Very entertaining, and it just goes to show that any one person can affect change and create that ripple effect that's needed in our community, because we need change. We need real and viable options for our community. Right. We need things to change, and we need things to change in a hurry, because the death tolls keep rising, and it doesn't show any signs of stopping anytime soon.
No, it's horrible.
If I ever make it to Minnesota, I would love to link up with you and have coffee. And
absolutely. Well, hey, so you're in Florida, right?
Yes, sir. West Palm Beach.
In November, I'm coming down there for the All Pathways to Recovery conference. It's at Punta Gorda. Punta Gorda. Yeah, so I'm coming there in November. So maybe if you're around, we can have. I can come to you and have some coffee.
I would love to be able to pick your brain on some ideas. And now that I have your phone number, you'll be hearing a lot from me and
cool.
And going forward. Because as I'm building No More Heroin as a nonprofit, I need good sound advisors and intelligent sounding boards to tell me I have great board members as well, but somebody that thinks outside the box, that's not afraid to voice his opinion, and I think there's some lobbying in all of our future.
Yeah, and if it's not, my wife always says like when I started my own business, I wanted to put lobbying as one of my things. She goes, no, hold on, because there's different laws around lobbying. Just put advocacy for now. So, but I think all of us can be an advocate, and all of us should be an advocate for something. I mean, it's, I'm really blessed. And I know I see my friend Lynn keep talking. I love Lynn. She's amazing, doing great work.
Randy, your work is making its way all the way to the East Coast. Right on.
I got to meet Lynn for the first time in DC when I was out there just last month, and her son is doing amazing, young man in recovery. Just stories like Lynn's and her family is what inspires me and keeps me going too. So, I see Irina's on here. I love Irina. She's been in many protests with me, marched right alongside me. So it's really great to see her.
Veron.
Yeah. So I recognize a few of these names, but I'm definitely going to go back and look at all the comments, and because that's really cool stuff to me. So thanks again, Higgy. I really appreciate it. So
thank you, Randy. Thank you, guys, everyone that's tuned in, for sharing this. Thank you for always being here and supporting No More Heroin and the Survivor Series. We're going to wrap this up. Thank you again, Mr. Randy Anderson. It's been an amazing interview, and I'm looking forward to talking to you soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night. See you guys.